Alright, man, peace. You know, brothers, I recently covered a major boxing event between Sean Porter and Danny Garcia. They were fighting for the WBC crown in the welterweight division. And in the comments section, there were so many brothers bringing up this Serena Williams meltdown at the US Open, which I was not aware of until I saw those comments. The day after, I spoke to my dad. He's a huge tennis fan. He's a very big tennis aficionado, and I was speaking with him about it. And he was saying, yes, she had a meltdown. But we talk about Serena Williams every once in a while. As I've been covering incessantly on my channel, well, I really shouldn't say incessantly. Every once in a while, I'll cover Serena Williams. Basically from the standpoint of her being cast as the mother goddess of the sports world. Because that is what she's been cast as. In the entertainment industry, Serena Williams is the proverbial mother goddess figure of the sports world. Oprah is the proverbial mother goddess figure of the entertainment industry from the movie and television show perspective. That's why they all bow down to her and venerate her. And that's why you have to be very, very careful. And that's why I always tell brothers, this is not a fanboy channel. Even when cats come on my channel telling me that they're a fan of mine, I tell them, don't say that. Because this channel is not about creating a cult of personality. You as a man, your woman, and your children should be a fan of yours. That's how things are supposed to go. You're not supposed to be a fan of another man. You can give a person credit for bringing certain things to light, so on and so forth, or acknowledging other brothers for their gifts. That's where your mindset should be at, not being a fan of somebody else. Why am I saying all this? Because Serena Williams is clearly a fan of herself. It's something called narcissism. And that in and of itself is an allusion to Nimrod. That name, narcissist, it literally means the son of Cush. Na'ar, which is a Babylonian word meaning the sun, and then Sissus or Kis, meaning Cush. That was one of the ways in which Cush's name was pronounced throughout the Mediterranean world in the ancient time. Point being is this: the character of Narcissus admired himself so much that it became deleterious to his existence, and we see that all over the entertainment industry. And as I've stated in other videos, athletes have two deaths. They have their athletic death and they have their actual death. Well, in the case of a female athlete like Serena Williams, she actually has three deaths. She has her athletic death, she'll have eventually her actual death, and she has a very traumatic death, which all females go through, which is the loss of her sex alter. Meaning what? From that time period of 15 years old to about 28, 30 years old, the woman is always taught that she should exalt in her sexual aspect. When they get into their mid to late 30s, that's a very traumatic time period for them. I've covered this in other videos, I believe in the Janet Jackson video that I did in regards to women not starting to mature until they're 45 years old. This is a very, very tenuous time period for Serena Williams. She's been very transparent with the psychological problems that she's had in the aftermath of her allegedly giving birth to that child. What they call in the medical field postpartum depression. And it was very, very clear to me when I watched how she conducted herself at the US Open that the reason why she was so upset at that judge was not because she thought that he was robbing her per se, even though there was a little bit of a component of that, but it was because she saw that her athletic prime was leaving her. She's starting to see her own athletic mortality. And with the birth of her child, she saw the end of the exaltation of her sex alter. That's a very rough time period for the woman when she transitions over into her mid to late 30s. And she's not walking down the street anymore, and men are not looking at her to the degree that they once did. All these things were playing in her mind, I have no doubt about that. And they erupted on that US Open court. So anyway, they're going to talk about it and I'm going to chime in.
I know you don't know that. I don't cheat to win. I'd rather lose. I'm just letting you know.
Let me say this. Why was she going on about how she doesn't cheat to win? Because as I covered in another video, she's been highly scrutinized for possibly being a performance-enhancing drug user. According to her, she gets tested more than any other female player. Could that possibly be true? That's possible. She is a so-called black woman, allegedly, so that already puts her under a higher level of scrutiny. And let's be quite frank, she does have a lot of physical characteristics of a man. People don't like that being said, especially in this so-called super sensitive time period that we're living in. But all you have to do is look at her physical features, not just in regards to her jawline and her head shape, But just look at her thorax, her midsection. That's a man's midsection. That is not a female's midsection. So do I believe that Serena Williams is a product of a genetic experiment or some type of super athlete experiment? Yes, I do. I'm sure that that's going to go over a lot of people's heads, but that's okay. She's not the only one. People like Tiger Woods and LeBron James, I also throw into that category as well, of super athletes that were pretty much genetically altered, grown on a farm, and there were agreements made with their parents to make sure that they were raised a certain way. I have no doubt about that. Once again, a lot of people are not going to like that. It's okay.
For what I believed in, I stood for what was right. I have never cheated in my life. He alleged that I was cheating and I wasn't cheating. I have a daughter and I stand what's right for her and I've never cheated. You owe me.
Now, did you hear what Serena Williams just stated? She said, I have a daughter and I'm trying to teach her what's right. Once you start mentioning your daughter in a tennis match, what that means is that it's time for you to retire. It's almost like when you hear male athletes in other sports talk about their kids and how they want to watch their kids grow up. That's them acknowledging that they recognize that their athletic mortality is quickly approaching. And Serena Williams, beyond that, she just could not handle the fact that that young girl was whooping her ass. That Osaka chick was whooping her ass all the way up and down the tennis court, and she couldn't handle it. So in all actuality, that umpire, that was the best thing that happened to her that day, because it made her a quote-unquote sympathetic figure. It allowed her to play the victimization card, which so many of these liberal females, particularly the liberal black woman, they do that so well. Play the victim card. That is what this umpire allowed her to do.
I don't need to cheat to win. I've won enough.
Well, I like that point. She says she does not need to cheat to win because she's won so much. Well, you should have had that same mentality before you flipped out. Your mentality should have been, I don't need to flip out like this because I've already won so much. I'm just going to win the next tournament. This person, Serena Williams, said that there are men out there that do a lot worse, but because she's a woman, she's been put under a higher level of scrutiny. Brothers, don't I always tell you that when it comes to the liberal black female, her number one altar is the feminist altar? Why didn't she say, I'm under a higher level of scrutiny because I'm a so-called black person? There are far fewer so-called black people on the tennis tour than there are women. There's a whole segment of tennis that is devoted to women. So wouldn't it have made more sense for her to try to make the play or the call, if she was going to play the victim card, that she was under a higher level of scrutiny because she was black rather than because she was a woman? Once again, brothers, like I always tell you, when you see the liberal black female play the racialist card, the racialist angle, it's only for attention. But their number one trump card is that feminist card. And what does that mean? That means that she follows the white woman before she'll follow the black man. That's what that means. This chick said, quote unquote chick said, because I'm a woman, you're going to take this away from me. How could they take anything away from you? You already getting your ass whooped. You were getting your ass whooped up and down the tennis court. So she was already trying to create the storyline, the narrative that she got robbed of possibly winning another major. She was trying to blame it on the umpire as opposed to the fact that she was getting her ass whooped.
The fact that I have to go through this is just an example for the next person that has emotions and that want to express themselves and they want to be assured.
Now, I hope that you brothers are paying very close attention to what this female here is saying. She's saying that just because she has emotions, she deserves to have the right to express them. That's very much like a child. I tell you, brothers, the woman is just a child with breasts. That's all they are. Are there exceptions to the rule? Absolutely. There are mature females out here, but for the most part, the woman is a child with titties, man. Let me rewind this back a little bit.
Woman, and they're going to be I have to go through this is just an example for the next person that has emotions and that want to express themselves.
Now look at this face right here that she's making. Does this look like a broad who was mad because of the umpire, or was she mad because she making that face like, this half Japanese, half black bitch is kicking my ass. I have to figure out how to weasel my way out of this. This is almost like when Mike Tyson bit Evander Holyfield's ear off. He was just trying to figure out how to get out of that ass whooping. And that's exactly what happened to Serena Williams.
They want to be a strong woman, and they're going to be allowed to do that because of today.
Hey, she said that if a woman who follows after her wants to be a strong woman, they're going to be allowed to do that because of what she did today. So in other words, she's a martyr. Serena Williams is a martyr for the cause of feminism. So now when the next female tennis player comes along and she's getting her ass kicked and she's looking for a way out, follow the Serena Williams paradigm of complaining and blaming the ref.
It didn't work out for me, but it's going to work out for the next person.
A lot to digest here. Quite the U.S. Open final for Serena Williams on Saturday. Will Kane is still here with us. Max, let's just...
Ain't no a lot to digest. What is there to digest? There's nothing deep about this shit. The girl got her ass whooped. She couldn't take it. She's used to getting her ass kissed. And that's life. She got humbled. There's a lot more humblings to come for Miss Serena Williams.
Right into it.
Yep.
What was your reaction to what happened this weekend?
Well, we're going to get into the Serena of it all, but my top reaction is Carlos Ramos, the chair, took away a great moment from Naomi Osaka.
You see what Mr. Max Kellerman just did right there? This is super liberal Caucasian Jew 101. They're always going to take the female side. They're always going to take the female side, and that's to the detriment of the woman. He's not doing Serena Williams or any other female any favors by taking that stance. Because when an adult does not understand that there are repercussions for your actions and that you do have to maintain a modicum of control over yourself, even if you're passionate and you're in an adverse situation. She had a meltdown, and that cost her the game more than anything else. What Carlos Ramos did was give her a warning for receiving coaching from her coach. He didn't dock her a point. It wasn't until she started to have her real meltdown and she broke her racket like she was damn Bo Jackson. Remember how Bo Jackson used to snap his bat over his knee? That's how this person looked. Just snapped the hell out that racket, didn't she? I said, shit. If she ever get mad at her so-called husband, that man is finished.
That's really what was going on. Now, her victory was not assured, which is why it was such a bad time to insert himself the way he did. But I thought it looked like she was going to win. Beat the greatest player who ever lived in a major championship.
Well, I have news for you, Max Kellerman. I'm not quite sure if you watched the match, but Naomi Osaka did indeed win. And the umpire was not the person who took anything away from her. It was actually Serena Williams who took everything away from her by throwing a tantrum like a child. Once again, the woman does not start to mature until she's about 45 years old, especially when they're used to being told how great they are and how much of a queen they are. Women are beautiful. They deserve to receive compliments as long as they conduct themselves in a way that would befit them receiving compliments. But for them to receive compliments just because they have a vagina, no, I'm sorry. Absolutely not.
In a Grand Slam championship, that's a big deal, and she is completely overshadowed today. No one is talking about her because everyone's talking about Serena and the ump. Now look, Serena said sexism right away. She went to that place fast and said, you wouldn't do this to a man.
Well, that should have resonated with you, Max Kellerman, for you to be a super liberal and for you to even notice how fast she went to the sexism angle. That should have showed you that she already had that in her clip because she's obsessing over it. Right now, we're in a time where the Nike athletes, they're being put on pedestals where they're told that anytime they feel a certain way, just fire off. Don't think about it, just fire off. LeBron James, Serena Williams, Colin Kaepernick. However they feel about something, you don't have to think about it. Just fire off. And we're going to protect you. We're going to have your back. Nike's going to have your back. The liberal sports media is going to have your back. And there's going to be a backlash very soon because people are going to very quickly get tired of a lot of this nonsense. A lot of this empty, hot air and fluff that's being put forth by these super woke athletes. It's getting very, very tiresome.
And my first reaction was, wow, boy, she went to that quickly. But the more I thought about it, the more I thought she's probably right.
The more you thought about it, as your pink panties got bunched up while you were watching the U.S. Open, you had to think about that to figure out that her accusations of sexism were correct, even though initially you said to yourself, she went to that too fast. For a super liberal to assess that Serena Williams went to the sexism angle too fast shows you that she was full of shit.
The rule that you look over, like you can't look over, you can't get coached, is an absurd rule because everyone always looks over, and you can claim you have the cover.
Well, Max Kellerman, I have news for you. If your issue's with the rule, then your issue's not with the umpire, because the umpire's job is to maintain the rule. So you can't say, well, the umpire was wrong and what he did was incorrect, and then say the rule is wrong. It's one or the other. If the rule is wrong and the umpire upheld the rule, then he's not culpable in any way. And he wasn't culpable in any way.
Looking for inspiration, but then the coaches are always coaching. Serena's coach admitted it afterwards. So that's always happening. Stephen A., when I was a kid, Willie Randolph never touched second base on a double play.
Max Kellerman, we're talking about tennis. We're talking about tennis, Max Kellerman.
I'm waiting for him to touch second base on the double play. The ump always gave it to him. So if it's a World Series game, the ump can't then say, oh, you didn't touch second base, it's not an out, right?
Actually, sir, the umpire can do whatever the hell they want to do. If Willie Randolph chooses to not touch second base, and he believes that just because he does it all the time, it should never be called, the umpire can call him whenever they want. That's how that goes.
Common practice. So it's common practice in tennis. Why would you choose that moment to give her the warning at that pivotal time? Now, she throws her racket, you got to do what you got to do. You can't do that. That's a clear violation. Nothing against anyone. You're
Even
just
though
not allowed to do it.
tons of male players do it all the time.
Okay, if you throw, I'm not upset. You throw the racket, you're going to. But now you know that.
Now, did you see what Molly Karam just stated? She didn't state that Serena Williams shouldn't have been penalized for the tennis racket issue. She stated that basically the reason why she has an issue with it is because men allegedly break their rackets and they don't get penalized for it. Once again, this is why the woman is not supposed to be involved in any form of legislature or judiciary committee, because they don't believe in propriety and right and wrong. They believe that you can do it, so I should be able to do it too. Basically, it's a monkey see, monkey do mentality. I'm going to one-up you. They embrace chaos. Once again, the woman is an agent of chaos in general. And the liberal sports media is becoming very upset because the tennis world is starting to chastise Serena Williams for her nonsense. No, we're not going to allow you to flip out on that fake strong black woman bullshit. We're also not going to allow you to dress like Catwoman at the French Open. Learn how to dress properly. This is a tennis match. This is not a strip tease.
There's a game on the line at that point, right? The third infraction. And what she was saying to him, thief and stuff, I grew up in the Jimmy Connors, John McEnroe era. They were saying a lot worse. Now, you can say, well, they're more sensitive to it now because of that. And I get that, but they were saying so...
Well, Max Kellerman, if you get it, why are you using that as a reference? There were things in every sport that were allowed back in the 70s that are not allowed today. Back in the 70s in the NFL, you could take somebody's head off. You can't do that today. That's not a gender issue. That's a propriety issue.
Much worse, and to take it there at that moment, no one is there to see a ref or an ump. They're there to watch the players, and it's Osaka who's actually victimized by this. No one is talking about her because there was an official who inserted themselves. They did not need to take the game at that point because she said thief. They could just look the other way. One thing I want to say quickly. I've also heard people say, don't describe it as a meltdown for Serena, right? Because that's sexist. That we wouldn't describe it.
Fuck all that. That was a meltdown. Sexism is when you do something to one gender that you would not apply to another gender. That's based off of that Luciferian pretext that the genders are actually equal, right? But that's actually the definition of what sexism is. If we would describe what a man does as a meltdown, then that also has to be applied to the woman. Right? Most of these so-called liberal or Luciferian women, they only want the benefits of so-called equality. They don't want any of the setbacks. You have to deal with the good and the bad when you want so-called equality. It's like when you're living in your parents' home and you want to live by yourself. You want freedom. Sure, you can get that when you live on your own, but you're also going to have to pay bills. You have to deal with all aspects of so-called equality.
I don't believe that's true. I remember constantly referring to McEnroe and Connors and reading and hearing in the press them saying they're babies, they're toddlers, they're having meltdowns. she did appear to have one of those. Tennis players appear like spoiled at times, and the way they talk. She did appear to be in that moment, but she had good reason. You don't throw Mike Trout out of a World Series game for arguing it, but boy, you maybe look the other way. You don't throw LeBron James out of a championship game set.
Sir, Max Kellerman, just 2 years ago, Steph Curry was thrown out of the NBA Finals in Game 6 with a bunch of bullshit phantom foul calls. And he finally spazzed out and they threw his ass out of the game. Now, one could make the case that he even could have been suspended for Game 7. And that's when the NBA stepped in and said, no, we're not going to allow that. But Steph Curry has been kicked out of a championship finals. And he's one of the higher profile athletes in all the sports, not just basketball. So in recent history, this has happened. Once again, Serena Williams was given a warning. And outside of the warning, she decided that she was going to indulge in a lot of juvenile, if not infantile, behavior.
Maybe you look the other way unless it's really over the top. Serena was not so over the top that she needed to get that game taken from her then, and it's Osaka who's victimized.
No, sir. Actually, you would have had a better point if she would have been penalized for quote-unquote being coached. She was given a warning. After that, she continued on. A grown man knows that when you receive a warning, you have to acknowledge the warning. When you're driving down the street and the light turns yellow, that's a form of a warning. You can choose to either ignore that warning and try to accelerate your car and possibly go through a red light, or you can slow your car down. It's all based on decision making, aka discernment. But unfortunately, the liberal female, particularly the liberal black female, is not held to a standard of decision making. She's allowed to do whatever she feels like doing. And that's only going to hurt her in the long run, as it's been hurting her for the last 45 years.
Serena Williams is the GOAT. I'm on the record saying last week that if she were not a woman, if she were a man, she'd be recognized as the GOAT.
Well then, brother, once again, you might as well recognize her as the GOAT then. Because in the words of Austin Powers, that's a man, baby. Ain't nowhere in the world you're going to tell me that that person was born female. But that's neither here nor there. I would not even call Serena Williams the GOAT. From a metaphorical or proverbial perspective, I would call her a cow, as in Hathor, the cow goddess. Just like the consort of Hathor was the bull god, the so-called Apis bull, which was representative of Asar or Osiris. All these top-level athletes, they're playing out a lot of ritualistic roles. That's why the media venerates them so much. But once again, Serena Williams is the mother goddess of the sports world. That's why she's utilized to promote that quote-unquote androgynous energy. And I'm going to be going over that in a commercial that was recently produced starring Serena Williams, where they make it very clear that there are some quote-unquote transgender or bigender aspects to her. But I'll let you brothers be the judge of that.
Black man, I'm incredibly proud of her accomplishments and how her and her sisters have conducted themselves and the level of adversity that they've had to deal with in the world of tennis and beyond. They are role models extraordinaires. But as we talk about this specific incident in question, Serena Williams was wrong.
Thank you, Stephen A. Smith, for having a backbone. Thank you, sir.
Somebody has to say it, so I will. The reality is that this referee, when Serena Williams brought the issue of gender and sexism into the argument, that's where she lost. 2017 French Open, Djokovic given fault on his serve for time violation, given a code violation as well for conduct after yelling. Same French Open 2017 time violation given to Rafael Nadal. He thought it was selectively enforced, and he complained about this same official, Carlos Ramos. 2018, this year, at Wimbledon, Djokovic again receives a code violation. Why? For slamming his racket into the ground. The point is that Carlos Ramos, no matter what we want to say, do I believe he was excessive? Yes. Do I think that he could have been a bit more measured emotionally himself? Absolutely. He's not.
Well, Stephen A. Smith, you were on a roll. I didn't see anything emotionally out of control from Carlos Ramos. I thought that he handled himself with a great deal of tact. And that's the reason why Serena Williams got penalized in the aftermath and he did not. because everything that he did was within the realm of his authority. All he did was tell her to stop being coached. He gave her a warning. He didn't dock her anything. She decided that she was not going to regard his ruling. She had no respect for authority, which is very consistent with the so-called liberal female, particularly the so-called liberal black female. They believe that any form of male hegemony or male authority is an assault on them because they have very, very low self-esteem.
Devoid of culpability here, but let's be very, very clear. Not only does all the tennis aficionados acknowledge that he operated within the rules, so much so that not only would his bosses refuse to overturn his decision, they upheld it and fined Serena Williams.
Well, shit, now that I'm paying attention, maybe Serena Williams lost this match because of that big-ass piece of fake hair on the back of her damn head. Maybe she should have took out a spare tennis racket out of the back of her out of the back of her damn head under her wig. What the hell is that? Looked like a damn flying squirrel in the back of her head. That's why she lost. All that friction in the air, she trying to whip her head around. She can't even get to the damn volley.
Because her conduct is something that they brought into question. But also, this man has a history of doing the same thing to men.
But were they cost a game? Did they
That's
lose
the
a
point.
full
Wait,
game?
wait,
A
wait.
point is one thing.
That's the point.
The umpire did not cost Serena Williams a game. Serena Williams cost herself a game. Once you're warned in any sport by an umpire or a referee that you're treading on some ground where you're in danger of putting yourself in a position where you can get kicked out or penalized, if you continue on down that path, it's all on you. It's not like he gave her a warning and then next she said, you know what, I disagree with what you're saying, and then he gave her a point deduction or something like that. She broke her racket, she continued to throw a tantrum, and then took it a step further. She got everything that she deserved.
A game, that's
the point, Stephen A. I'm with you. First of all, the coaching thing I don't love. But then the code violation, I'm not going to argue with that.
And brothers, pay very close attention to this dynamic. This is one of the main reasons why the so-called black man has so many issues presiding over his family. Because when he does show a backbone, who comes to the aid of the liberal black woman? The liberal Caucasian Jew male, or the liberal Caucasian male period, and the liberal woman of the other races. Because they understand the so-called black woman, the so-called liberal black woman's programming. They understand her programming, which initially is feminist. Okay, she will always side with the feminist angle over the racialist angle.
They took the game.
I am not getting into the particulars in terms of a game as opposed to a point. I'm saying there's a bigger issue here. The bigger issue here was the conduct of the two.
Yep.
He has the luxury of saying he operated within the confines of his rules and regulations. When you go to a match, it's not just about preparing for the opponent, it's preparing for the officiating. And the reality...
Thank you, sir. Wonderfully put. When we watch a high-level basketball game, particularly in the playoffs, one of the main things that the coaches will tell their team is, look, we have such and such referee out here today. We know this referee does not take any shit. Do not try to give him any shit. Stay focused on the game at hand. If you're a top-level athlete, you have to make sure that you adjust not only to your opponent, but also to the umpire/referee. That's just a part of life, as long as we have the human element. Just like certain referees, they might speak with each other before the game and say, look, we have to referee Draymond today. We're going to give him a little bit more leeway because we know how he is. That's a part of sports.
Is that she knew coming into it, because he also gave Venus Williams problems in the past. You know that he's hardcore. Her argument was lost the second she made it about gender. Had she made it about her, then there would have been a stronger argument. But she said, I'm standing up for women's rights, etc., etc. Excuse me, when did he violate your rights that he didn't do?
It doesn't matter, Steve. Serena Williams has fallen down her own rabbit hole. Among other rabbit holes that she's fallen down. She's fallen down the Twitter/woke rabbit hole. She's a member of her own cult of personality through Nike and that corporate brand building. LeBron James is supposed to be the new Malcolm X, and Serena Williams is supposed to be the new leader of the feminist movement. She believes her own hype. So of course she's going to jump to all these wild conclusions whenever she's confronted by somebody who is going to, who is going to address her nonsense and is not going to tolerate it.
towards men. If you have men that can point to him being a problem, the same exact problem for them as he was for you, then it's not about gender. It's about him.
Can I jump in here, guys?
She lost.
Yeah, get in.
Can I jump in here? And I want to make sure I give you guys time to respond. I'm sure, Molly, you will as well. Let me start with this. I find it absolutely unconscionable that sexism is mentioned as an excuse for what went down yesterday. One thing...
Well, we know this, Will Kane. Serena Williams does not know how to take losing properly because she thinks that everything is supposed to go her way. So she's going to pull anything out of her ass that she can pull. And the liberal sports media network that you're a member of, they're going to aid and abet her in her nonsense.
Max got right, and I think it's honestly the only thing Max got right, is this has to be mentioned at the top. Naomi Osaka's performance, and not just her performance on the court, but her grace under pressure, has to be lauded. It has to be put at the top of the list because it was taken from her. I do not think...
Well, Will Kane, Naomi Osaka is not going to be a part of the liberal media narrative because of her conduct and her personality. It's not confrontational like the average liberal black female here in America and the image that Serena Williams was trying to put forth and propagate in that tennis match. Naomi Osaka was meek, she was humble. So she has to fall by the wayside. They can't put any attention on her.
Max, it was taken from her by Carlos Ramos, the umpire. I believe this is clear cut. I don't really understand the matter of debate. It went down fairly similar.
Got this poor girl crying. She won the tennis match, and now she's guilt-tripping herself about what occurred. And it has nothing to do with her whatsoever. This is the type of confusion and chaos that gets caused by liberal females.
Simply, first, there was a warning given for what was a clear violation of coaching. If you want to argue that the rules shouldn't apply because they're not consistently enforced, that's fine, but it doesn't matter. She and her coach clearly...
Now look at this shit, brothers. Look at Serena Williams looking mad at the world as usual. Why is that? Why are so many of these Americanized liberal black females always trying to maintain this angry facade? You know why that is? Because they bought into the liberal Caucasians' ideologies pertaining to feminism, and these ideologies are not making them happy. So what they do is they embrace the dark side, the anger side. And when that doesn't work, all they can do is be resentful. Serena Williams should not have even been allowed to be in the picture with Naomi Osaka because you can feel the negative energy coming off of her.
Broke the rules. But at that point, you have to acknowledge, by the way, the coach admitted to it. 100% admitted to it. We were coaching. I was coaching from the stands.
Yes, but he also...
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Will Kane.
Serena may not have been looking.
That doesn't matter. That is beside the point.
Brothers, did you hear what Max Kellerman just stated in response to what Will Kane said? Max Kellerman said, but Serena wasn't looking. She might not have been looking. Let me rewind that back.
Her coach clearly broke the rules. But at that point, you have to acknowledge, by the way, the coach admitted to it. 100% admitted to it. We were coaching. I was coaching from the stands.
Yes, but he also said Serena may not have been looking.
That doesn't matter. That is beside the point.
Thank you, sir. If you watch an NFL game, if an offensive lineman gets beat by a defensive lineman and he tries to leg whip him, even if he's unable to actually make the person trip, they're still going to call a penalty. It's not about how successful the execution was in your chicanery. It's about the attempt to execute the chicanery. That's what a penalty is about. But it just, once again, just goes to show you how the victimization mentality is fostered by the super liberal Caucasian male, or really Caucasian Jew male. You have to be very, very careful with them, so-called black men, because they try to put a battery in your back at all times to get you to embrace a deleterious mindset. And they do it with the so-called black woman also, with the liberal black woman. But it's far easier to do with them because they have very low self-esteem and they're looking for attention.
It's a penalty enforced on the player, even if it's just the coach who's doing it. That's the rules. Moving on, it was only a warning at that point, and Serena lost her cool. Second, she loses a point for crushing her racket. Molly, this is not the 1970s. John McEnroe and Jimmy Connor standards don't exist anymore. If you...
Thank you, sir.
Crush your racket, you at least get the second infraction, and sometimes people are thrown straight out, disqualified for it. It's not even a gray area. Third, she then went on, and it's not, again, this is not a gray area. By your third violation, you get penalized a game.
She told him that she demanded an apology. She berated him. She essentially equated to a delay of the game and arguing the calls. She said, "You're attacking my character. You're a liar. You're never going to win."
Well, it's very difficult to attack character that doesn't exist. That's very difficult.
One of my matches again. You stole from me, and not until she said, "You're a thief," was she given the verbal abuse infraction.
It would have been funny as hell if the umpire gave her another penalty, kicked out, and said, "I was in fear of my life."
At that point, her third cost her a game. The arguments I'm hearing from Max and others is simply this: the rules shouldn't apply to Serena. And I don't care how big a star you are. And she's the GOAT. She's a massive star.
They don't uphold the rules then, and they need to change the rules.
And that's the point.
Molly Karam said they need to change the rules. That's super liberal thinking 101 or lack thereof. I don't like the rule. It's not being utilized how I think is beneficial, so they need to change it. Now, if that same referee had done the same thing to a prominent male tennis player, would Molly Karam be saying that? Absolutely not. Now, I will say this, and I believe I mentioned this in another video. There was a situation where there was a female tennis player who had her shirt on the wrong way, and she took her shirt off, and they penalized her. And the male tennis players are always taking their shirt off with no penalty. That was a rule that needed to be changed, because all the female tennis player was doing was trying to make sure her shirt was on straight. There was nothing wrong with what she did, and she had a sports bra on underneath. But that's the difference between propriety and super liberalism, which is extremism. Nothing is good enough for them if it's not working out in a beneficial way for their favorite particular athlete. And you cannot change rules just for one person. Serena Williams is only going to be in tennis maybe for another 3 years, because she's going to fight to try to break Margaret Court's record. But she understands that she's on the other side of it, and it's frustrating her right now.
Respond to that. I agree with Molly here. That's the point. My first reaction actually, Will, was yours. Like, wait a minute, Serena, the rules apply to everyone. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized when they are selectively enforced, particularly in high leverage moments, then we're not saying, hey, Serena, the rules apply to everyone, just like you. What she's saying is...
Well, you know what, Max Kellerman, I have news for you, sir. It is just as important, and it's as incumbent upon the athlete to be cognizant of the situation that they're in, the dire straits that they're in an important championship level match, as it is for the umpire to be considerate of the situation that a top level athlete is in. The umpire or referee in any sport, they don't have to say, well, you know what, let's let that go because it's Peyton Manning, or it's Tom Brady, or it's LeBron James, or it's Mike Trout. They don't have to do that. If it's a Serena Williams, all she got was a warning. When you get that warning, once again, it's like approaching a yellow light. You can either slow down or you can speed up. She chose to speed up and she crashed her car. That's life.
Why do these rules apply
hold
especially to me?
Hold on the sexism point. See, now you're saying the reason they were enforced was because of her gender. And Stephen A.
I'm not
just
saying that.
Hold on. Well, you're agreeing with what she just said. Stephen A. just pointed out all the instances where men have been penalized in the exact same way in this decade. And Stephen A., you missed one. Carlos Ramos at the Olympics gave Andy Roddick an infraction. Andy Murray an infraction for what? Calling him stupid. This simply isn't a matter of gender.
Of course, it's not a matter of gender, and Max Kellerman is so confused, but he has to maintain his facade that he's operating on a higher level mentally than everyone. Will Kane stated that basically Max Kellerman is agreeing that the reason why Serena Williams was penalized was because of her gender. Max Kellerman said, no, I'm not saying that. Well, you just finished saying that after thinking about it, you agree with Serena. That Serena Williams felt like she was penalized because of her gender, so which one is it? What Max Kellerman is trying to imply is that he believes that Serena Williams was actually scrutinized because she's Serena Williams. So, therefore, you did not agree with Serena after thinking about it. You agree with yourself, but you seem to be very confused in regards to what exactly your stance is on this case.
But we're talking about taking a game.
A full
and this
game.
is in every sport.
It's her third infraction.
That's not discretionary. Not just because it's Serena, but in every sport. If particularly a star player, whether we like it or not, is in a high leverage moment, generally the feeling around sports is the official should look the other way.
Well, sir, unfortunately for you, everybody cannot go by their feelings. The feeling around sport this and the feeling around sport that. You're a boxing aficionado. You remember when Roy Jones hit Montel Griffin when he was on the ground? And Roy Jones was the most prominent boxer in the world at that time. So things happen. You make bad decisions, you get penalized.
If possible, she called him a thief because she said he called her a cheat.
Yeah, but again, and what I'm saying about
Guys, did you hear what Max Kellerman just did there? He said that Serena Williams stated that she called the referee or the umpire a thief because he called her a cheat, essentially. No, he did not call her anything, and you can't just put that word essentially at the end of it. What he did was he gave her a warning. That's all he did. All the penalties thereafter were her fault. Let me rewind this back.
you, Max, is this.
Sports is the official should look the other way if possible. She called him a thief because she said he called her a cheat.
Yeah, but
no, sir. She accused him of being a thief because she claimed that in her mind he was accusing her of being a cheat. She didn't call him anything. So you're trying to create a fake argument. You're trying to create fake substance because there is no substance to your stance. But you're desperate. It's okay. I get it.
And what I'm saying to you, Max, is this. Fair enough. And we can parse, we can pick apart and dissect things. But in the end, what it comes down to is that she brought up the issue of gender. She brought up sexism. And there is no credibility to that argument in this case.
Thank you, Stephen A. Smith. Thank you for finding your backbone on this.
You can refute his judgment, but his judgment that is questionable in her mind was questionable in the minds of numerous men who are top 1 and 2 players in the world.
And let me say this, brother. This is the danger of possibly allowing a female coach into the NBA. That it's going to be a very crucial situation for the team that she's coaching. And the referee is going to give her some type of technical to kick her out of the game. And it's going to be, you kicked her out because she's a woman and all this other stuff. The woman is trying to force herself into the realm of men so that she can create a chaotic atmosphere. Because that's what they're best at. And it's incumbent upon the man to create parameters for the woman, because the woman is like a child, man, I'm telling you. And if you don't create parameters for the woman that you're dealing with, at the very least, you have to create the dynamics for the relationship that you have with that woman. If you don't do that, they're going to bring chaos into your life. The woman needs you to create order. And when you allow her to run amok, she's going to bring chaos at every turn. That's that Kali Ma spirit, man. That's that spirit of Kali, the goddess of destruction.
Where a game was taken from a man under those circumstances, because here's the best argument.
But she said that before he took the game.
Here's the best argument that
Thank you, Steve. And Max Kellerman continues to try to ignore that point. All he did was give her a warning. They're trying to jump straight to the game and to the point and all that other stuff. It was her fault that she got the game taken away from her. And the game was already lost. The match was already lost. She was getting her ass whooped. It was over.
Not sexist from a closer point of view is if you're doing something bad for her, you're doing something good for her opponent, who is also a woman.
You're bringing up the
Hold
game.
on, that's one. But from a larger point of view, the question is the expectation that women comport themselves different than the kind of expectations for men?
Yeah, but you can answer.
Now what you're trying to do is you're trying to execute some type of thought battle on people. Well, I feel like this is how you're thinking, so I'm going to argue with you based off of how I feel you think. No, sir, that doesn't work.
Should have reminded her the third penalty is a game.
Fine, y'all.
No, Molly Karam, he does not have to remind her of a damn thing. Supposedly, she's a strong black woman. She should remember that shit already.
There is no proof of sexism. And remember, the things that she was saying was prior to her getting the game. I'm not saying it warranted him taking a game from her. Right. He was wrong to do that.
No, sir, do not acquiesce that point. He was not wrong to do that. You already stated accurately that the tennis association is backing him because they know that he was well within his rights to do what he did. Do not try to give them that because you know you're whooping their ass.
He went there first.
I'm saying that she went there first. So if she went there first and there's no credibility to that argument, why are we making that argument on her behalf?
Because you worship her, Stephen A. Smith. That is why they're making up arguments for her, because they have nothing of substance. Even Max Kellerman understands it. Look at his face, man. I'm going to rewind this back for a moment.
You're looking at the outcome. Her words and her actions saying was prior.
Now, guys, pay very close attention to Max Kellerman, how he starts to acknowledge what Stephen A. Smith is saying is correct, and he agrees with him, but he has to put up a fake argument for the sake of the show and for the sake of maintaining the Serena Williams cult.
Again, I'm not saying it warranted him taking a game from her.
Right.
He was wrong to do that. What I'm saying,
she went there first.
I'm saying is she went there first. So if she went there first and there's no credibility to that argument, why are we making that argument on her behalf when we are looking at the outcome? Her words and her actions preceded that judgment call on his part.
He
That's
never
the point.
He never called her a cheater, Max. He gave her a warning for a coaching violation that she interpreted as calling her a cheater. She was so offended by that. She found that so egregious that she called him a thief. Isn't that a little inconsistent?
What this woman has been through over...
Oh, enough already. All that bullshit. Do you know what they've been through? What they've been through is making tens of millions of dollars on the tennis tour. She's had sex with a bunch of them white boys on the other side of the tennis court. All those white male tennis players, she's had sex with most of them. I mean, it is what it is. People can get mad about me saying that. I don't give a shit. Don't play me no violin for this broad, man.
Well, hold on, but that is, right. If you want to contextualize Serena, right, I understand that.
Contextualize, we support her.
We have to...
Speak for your damn self.
I'm getting a wrap. I wish we could do more. Yeah, we have to. All right.
Ain't no more left to this conversation. Stephen A. Smith and Will Kane really whooped your ass. Very similar to how Naomi Osaka was whooping Serena Williams' ass, or Terrence Williams. Serena turns. It is what it is. But brothers, always be very vigilant in regards to the parameters that you create for your own life and the people that's in your life. Because if you don't, that liberal woman, once you're able to ascertain that she's a liberal woman, which the vast majority of them are, they're going to try to push the boundaries further and further. And kudos to that umpire, Ramos, for putting Serena Williams in her damn place.